Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the official beginning of the 2024-25 school year. We decided this year to do a scaled-down version of Convocation to provide more time for school-based staff to get ready for day one of school at their local school sites. Despite this scaled-down version of our Convocation, our hope is that the impact of what you experience today will set the tone for how we start and finish this school year. During the 2022 convocation, which was my first year leading the Little Rock School District, we introduced the phrase Reimagining LRSD and provided a rationale for why we needed to do things differently. During the 2023 convocation, we continued using the hashtag Reimagining LRSD and aligned it to the goal of LRSD becoming a learner-centered district and focusing on our organizational culture and individual wellness. This year, guess what? We are continuing our focus on reimagining LRSD to be a learner-centered district, and we're here from a leader who has taken his district on a 14-year journey of transformation, making students the center and focus of their district's operations. I have looked up to and admired Dr. Lavelle Brown's work for years, and am thrilled to have him here with us today to share highlights of how his district was able to make this shift in hopes that we can glean insight that can help us on our journey here in Little Rock to do just the same. We've shared information about Dr. Brown's background with you already, so we're going to jump right in and allow him to introduce himself and share his story with us. As you are listening, if there are burning questions you'd like to ask, please use the QR code on the screen to send us your questions. We will have about 20 minutes for Q&A at the end of his presentation. We may not have time to address every single question, but we will do our best to combine like questions and topics to allow him time to respond to as many questions as possible. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Lavelle Brown, Superintendent of Ithaca City School District in Ithaca, New York. Let's welcome him virtually to Little Rock, Arkansas. Dr. Brown, take it away.
Hey, no, Dr. Wright, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to share and to learn. And I love the t-shirt, by the way. I'm gonna please send me one. That's awesome. And to all the folks who are on the call today, thank you. Thank you for logging in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being educators. Just thank you. I'm hoping to share many stories today and hopefully some lessons learned and you take some things from this conversation this morning. But most importantly, if you don't take anything from what I share, just take this one instructional strategy. See, begin every conversation, particularly with our learners, our youngest learners, with a thank you. Thank you for being here. And I've been doing that now for many years. I have a twin brother. For the folks who really know about me, you know I have a twin brother. Now, my twin brother doesn't look much like me. He's about Dr. Wright's height. And if you ever meet me, you'll realize I'm not that tall. But my twin brother is very tall. He has all of his hair still. He's very good looking. See, we're fraternal twins, if you know what that is. But we're twins, all right? And we grew up in a small town in central Virginia. And at graduation, our high school graduation, my twin brother and I were there. Unfortunately, 8 of our closest friends and our cousins, folks, the other 8 young men that we grew up with were not there. My twin brother and I are the only 2 of our cohort of 10 that are still alive. And that's a conversation for another workshop. But I shared this week. We made it to graduation, which was a win because we were the first young men from our neighborhood to have graduated high school. And a person showed up to graduation and he came at the time with a special award. And he gave it out. We were embarrassed by the award at the time. And he mentioned it to everybody in attendance. He said, in this country right now, there are 2 students who've earned perfect attendance, not just perfect attendance as high school seniors, but perfect attendance from pre-K through high school. See, my twin brother and I went to school every single day, y'all. I know that was pre-pandemic, pre-COVID protocols, all that stuff. My mama sent us to school every day. We were poor and it was dangerous where we lived. And she said you had to go eat and you had to be safe. And we liked school. And we went every single day, y'all. And my brother and I are now writing a book about how we survived that time and survived school and thrived. And the most impressive people we've ever known did not. And the title of the first chapter is Thank You. Thank you for being here. You see, we went to school every single day and no one ever said thank you. Thank you for showing up. I see you. I love you. We just never got that. And it would have made a big difference had we done that. Uh, so if you take nothing from me today, just start every session with a thank you and watch what happens. The folks who've been doing that with me the last few years, they write me later, they send me notes, they hit me on Twitter. It's like, it made a significant impact on the relationships we're building. It matters. And in a time post-pandemic where young people have showed us that they can be anywhere they want to be or choose to be, even though they're supposed to be with us, just like y'all, for you to be here today and not multitasking, because we got a lot to talk about now. I'm asking for your engagement and your attention because what we're talking about right now is important. And I could argue, as I've experienced through my lived experience, it's more important than attendance rates, grades, or graduation rates. This is about life and death. What we're talking about right now is about love, and love is important. You see, I'm hoping I can share some images and some slides to sort of tell this story. And again, thank you, Dr. Wright, for this wonderful opportunity to share and to learn. Hopefully you see something on the screen right now, Dr. Wright, you see some things right there. Those are just ways you can reach out to me. Let me know what you're thinking, questions you may have, visits. We've had visitors in my school district from all over the world. I've been in every school. I've been in every state in the country and 19 different countries over the last 5 years, engaging in this discussion. And I'm happy to be with y'all virtually today. You see, as I prepare to walk into a space, as my mama and daddy taught me, you got to be twice as good to get half a chance. I do my homework. I read. I do a lot just to be prepared to step into a space. And it's important. And it shows humility, it shows empathy, it shows love for you. I love y'all. And what I did, I hope you don't mind. See, I'm a bit of a nerd of this work. I always go to folks' websites. And you can learn a lot about websites now. And it's fascinating to me how many folks in an organization don't go to their own websites or don't spend much time. You have a good one. Now, just shout out to your communications team or whoever's putting it together, and Dr. Wright for your leadership. But I want you to know, when I look there, and I teach a couple of courses on district leadership, organizational change, how to do strategic planning. So what you put on that website as far as your vision, and a vision statement is typically an aspirational goal, something you're going for, something that's never been achieved before. I found, now it may not be your official vision statement, but I found something on your website that I rarely see in this country. And I've been in hundreds of school districts. You say this on your site, and it's there this morning too. I checked this morning, so I have to make sure it was still there. And it was there. It's there for people like myself who are coming to learn more about you. You're saying you want to provide a welcoming, nurturing, educational atmosphere for all students. Let's sit with that. Now, if we were together, I would take an opportunity as a pedagogical technique to just have you sit with something. Because silence is important. What I'm reading here is aspirational, it's bold, it's audacious. Why? Because it's never been done before. See, our schools, I could back this up with research and data, weren't designed to meet the needs of all of our young people. And frankly, they haven't done a great job of being welcoming and nurturing. Although we have a lot of positive attributes, this is not something we do very well. So I would offer to you as a strategic planner, as a professor of organizational change, that this is what we're going for. This is what you're endeavoring to do. And this is something that if you do will change the world. And for the theorists in the room, if you're with me right now still, you'll know that in order to achieve a vision, something like this, as bold as this, you got to do something every single day. That's the typical mission statement. What will I do every day in order to achieve the impossible, the unprecedented? I would offer to y'all, after going through your site and reflecting on what's happened during my 14 years as a superintendent, in my 30 year, yeah, I know I'm older than I look, y'all. I've been doing this 30 years, all right? And over those times, I got a lot of lessons learned, a lot of scars. See, I would endeavor to break, shape, and build. And if you can hang with me for the next 20 minutes or so, I want to walk through some examples, some artifacts, some receipts. What would it look like to break, to shape, and to build your organization, your school district, in order to achieve that unprecedented vision? See, hang with me now, hang with me now. See, I want y'all to go back with me to 1992. See, that year I graduated was 1992. I'm dating myself. Maybe that's cool because we're friends now, all right? Y'all now know how old I am. It was 1992 when I graduated high school. And, also at graduations, a person showed up, an admissions counselor from the University of Virginia. And I know y'all, y'all probably don't celebrate the ACC and the University of Virginia down where y'all are, but, it's a good school, all right? And I went there for free. They came and told my mom and daddy, yo, your son can go to the UVA for free as long as he wants. because of the successes I had achieved in the classroom. And this is coming from a kid who didn't talk much. Shout out to the occupational therapist on the call. You probably can already hear and sense some of the challenges I've had with speech. So it's taken me 10,000 hours to be able to talk in a way that people can understand me, and another 10,000 plus hours to be able to present in a way that's coherent. So I say that educators are powerful. Thank you for saving my life. But in 1992, because of the ways in which we worked and the ways that I was supported and the ways I got the differentiated supports, I was able to go to one of the best universities in the world for free. I'm the only four-time graduate from there because my mama said, as long as they're going to pay for it, you better keep going. All right. And so I was there. And so go back to 1992 now, when I was walking into the University of Virginia, this is what was happening. It was a special time in the culture. I hope some of y'all recognize some of the images on the screen. See, this was the kind of stuff that was a part of my life. And see, there's an emotional reaction right now from me. And I'm hoping some of y'all are probably like, who are these people? I know there's some younger folks on the call who are like, oh, juice? What is that? Anyway, if you know what I'm talking about, juice, white men can't jump. The Bodyguard, there were some breakthroughs in film, where interracial couples were coming together for the first time on camera. The Dream Team, we're watching a future iteration of the Dream Team right now. My favorite team was the Redskins. I didn't know why we shouldn't call them the Redskins at the time. Barry Bonds was making $4 million and everybody was complaining about how much money he was making. Could you imagine Barry Bonds, how much he would make today? See, I'm just trying to establish, y'all know that guy at the top, that president. He was our president at the time, all right? I just want to establish the emotional connection to the time and the place because, see, at that time, I was rolling into a teacher ed program. And, that summer, the admissions counselor came to my house and said, Louvel can't be a teacher with this full scholarship. We can get him into the architecture school, the engineering school, we'll have him. But to go into the ed school with a full ride, see, he can't change the world. He was talking to my mama. He can't change the world, Lucille. Going into education, and my mama argued against it. My coaches had all went to ed schools. They were the ones who had inspired me. My mama was a teaching assistant for 46 years, she would say. And 46 years she had been in classrooms, helping generations of young people learn how to read. She knew that education could change the world and save lives. That's why I wanted to be a teacher. See, even though they tried to talk me out of doing it, I wanted to be a teacher anyway. In my first semester, in the state of Virginia, it was Contemporary Trends in Education. That was a class that every aspiring teacher had to take. I took that class. My mama saved the paper from my first day, my first paper. I was the first generation college student. She wanted to save everything. I got a box at home right now. My first paper, Contemporary Trends in Education, I had to write about what was happening in our industry. And here are the things, y'all, here, check it out. Here are the things that I wrote about at the time. These were the 5-paragraph essay. These were the headings. These were the things I wrote and explored about what was happening in education at the time and why they needed people like me. I wrote about low pay. My mama was always talking about superintendents and administrators. I don't know why I became a superintendent because she talked about superintendents so bad. Y'all feel me? So, but then I became an administrator because as a teacher, I thought, administrators are horrible. We were writing about a lack of administrative support. Come on now. We're talking about discipline. I hear one more conversation about cell phones in this country and students being out of control. Discipline, we were talking about at the time. Low morale. The morale in 1992 was lower than it had ever been. You see, if you read Education Week, the School Superintendent's Journal, if you look at culture and climate surveys from school districts across the country, including my own, here are the things that are revealing themselves as we speak in 2024. This is what the data revealed in New York State about what's happening in our industry. Look, y'all see anything similar, the same, different? Yeah. In Ithaca, we don't call it discipline anymore. We call it, wait for it, student behaviors, all right? So we've evolved a little bit, but I'm here to argue with y'all. Like, I'm thinking back to that guy who came to my house to tell me I couldn't change the world. Did I change the world? I'm 30 years in. You see, I thought, as I'm thinking about this, I'm in real reflection mode right now. This is therapeutic to talk about this with y'all. See, I went to, let me find some data. I know we've changed the data over the last 30 years. So, the only standardized assessment data that I could find that goes back that far is the NAEP assessment, the Nation's Report Card. You can go to the website right now. It goes back, it goes back more than 30 years. It goes back much longer than that. We just started tracking the achievement for kids of color, though, in the early 2000s. But if you go back to 1992, what I'm showing you right now, I can share with you the links and the data. What I'm sharing with you right now is that the data has been pretty much flat over the 30 years. If you look at our standardized assessment scores. One could argue that it's gotten worse for kids of color. I promise this is going to be inspirational in a second, y'all. Hang with me now, hang with me. But I'm just trying to tell y'all what we got to break, because we're caught in this system of doing the same, having the same kind of results over many, many years and generations. That's why I say we need to be thinking about what should we break. You see, what I'm putting on the screen right now is a way to break some stuff. And I'm asking you, like we did in my school district, like we are doing in the places I'm working, we're committing to being different. And what does that mean? What does that look like? We will reduce the predictability of who succeeds and who fails. Looking at that data I just shared, I haven't looked at your data deeply, but if looking at our data, it is revealing that it's pretty predictable who's going to do well in our schools and who's not. And anyone who wishes to argue that, I always ask them to remove the emotions and bring to me your data or your student stories. If you're growing up in poverty, if you are young people of color in this country, they aren't doing as well as others. We got to reduce that predictability. And in order to do that, we got to do something, actively do something to interrupt the things we know are contributing to that predictability. Our policies, our practices, our approaches to teaching and learning, our mindsets. There's something we must work on each and every day to interrupt the things that we know have contributed to that kind of data and that kind of success. And then that last one is most important. I am here because my joy was cultivated. I am here because someone saw my genius, even though others did not. See, as a kid who couldn't talk much, I remember going to bingo matches with my mama on Tuesday nights because she would go to Board of Supervisor meetings and Board of Education meetings every Tuesday to talk about the stuff that's on the screen, because the kids on her row were dying. And she wanted us to do something as a community to interrupt it. So she would go to those meetings. But before those meetings, though, she went to play bingo. And she took my brother and I to every bingo match. And we would sit there and play. And one night, Miss G, who was my mama's partner now, who played with her every Tuesday, she's a teacher in the school district, she said to her, Lucille, he can move his hands and use his eyes better than anybody I've ever seen. He's an expert communicator. We will get him the support to teach him how to talk, Lucille. See, she saw my genius and my joy. And she helped cultivate it through the ways in which she made sure I was in the right classes, the ways in which she asked folks to believe in me. Who are you recognizing today? What will you build into your curricular model to make sure you're representing the genius and the joys of all young people? See, here, this is the work right here. This is the work of my school district. This is what we've done for 14 years. Whenever asked, whenever challenged, we go back to this. Now, we can call this, if I had more time, I would put the different headings at the top, because what we call this has evolved over time. It went from strategic planning, continuous improvement, future-focused schools. Come on now. At one point, we were calling it equity work. See, I don't care what you call it. People get caught up on language at times, but this is the work. And see, that's breaking. What will we do to break? And more importantly, what will we do to shape? Once we realize that we need to shift some things to meet the needs of all students, because our systems are working well for some. But if we want to do it for all, we got to break some stuff up. And when we break it, we got to shape it. And I'm offering to you that shaping has to start here. Now, I'm sitting on several dissertation committees right now. I'm helping grad students become doctorates. And the beauty of doing that is you get to see and immerse yourself in the most recent literature and research. I've been saying what's on the screen right now for 30 years, that every student benefits from an education that is multicultural, that allows for young people to explore the histories and cultures of all. When you immerse that, when you include that in the curriculum development, when you include that in the instructional model, the assessment model, everybody achieves more. The data is revealing that. We know this to be true. Well, I've been saying it, but people still don't believe it, all right? Now that I've sat on these dissertation committees, I'm looking at the research, I'm dangerous, y'all, because I can show you now where it shows up in meta studies. Anybody who wants to tell me that this is not true or that we shouldn't do it, bring your research and your data. Leave your emotions at home. And I say this more importantly, if not doing it well, I could call it educational malpractice. You see, because if we're going to talk about shaping, it needs to be a multicultural education. In order for it to be multicultural and to meet the needs of all the young people we serve, we got to focus in on these things here. Most importantly, the student voice and agency. I heard Dr. Wright mention student voice and focusing on student voice. What does that mean? As I say to folks all the time, everybody wants this right now. Everybody wants student voice and agency until they get it, all right? Because when you get it, they will come and they will speak out. And our natural reaction to that is to get defensive. And I'm saying to pump the brakes, slow down. Because see, here are examples of what student and voice and agency looks like and feels like. Yes, it's about young people being able to explore their identities as part of the curriculum. We've said that every lesson, every unit needs to have an opportunity for young people to explore something about themselves and others. That's identity work. And young people should have an opportunity to feel like they've mastered the curriculum. Seeing academic standards, doing that in an expert way by the facilitator, us, having young people have a sense of belonging. How are we measuring that? How are we promoting it? How are we including that in all that we do? Making sure they're a part of it. We've said over the last decade that young people would lead or be partners in every single thing we do. That's why they're writing policy at the board level. That's why they're helping us design curriculum. That's why they are a part of our evaluation model of both our curriculum and our educators. They are doing the walkthroughs with our administrators. They're giving teachers and everybody feedback each and every day. See, that's voice and agency. And we're paying them. We were breaking state laws for a while, but now we figured out how to massage the state laws to pay our students. Because a young person came into me, like, Dr. Brown, for generations, systems have benefited from the talent and the expert and the work of young people who have been marginalized, particularly our Black and brown students. And we haven't gotten compensated for that. What would you do differently? If we're going to be building your curriculum, if we're going to be leading professional development, you better pay us. So we did. That's student voice and agency. I hope y'all hear it. You see, and then there's the academic standards. All right, so we have built a curriculum model. I'll send you the link later. You can go look at the examples of case studies. It used to be called project-based learning, and it's evolved now to being called case studies, because a good project is about working across disciplines, solving a problem that's relevant to the local community, something that is going to involve some field work and field experiences. Yeah, that's cool. And our work has evolved from building bridges on our wilderness trails to, hey, if you really asking people what they want to solve, they will tell you. And in our community, they want to solve issues around ableism, sexism, classism, racism. See, those are topics that are important to the young people we serve. Now, how will we respond? By building out a curriculum model that includes projects and case studies that allow folks in our classrooms to work on those issues. And see, every day, I have people push back and say, I don't know if that's connected to the academic standard. I'm going to show y'all where it shows up in a second, all right? But see, we started with the mindset for educators. We had to build in time for people to write this type of curriculum, time for folks to evaluate it, to walk with kids, to look at how it's being implemented. It takes some time now. But if you're talking about what kind of culture we're building, that's what it looks like. And it's connected to state. For example, in our state, I've read every state's academic standards now. I spent a year, Dr. Wright, looking at academic standards because I kept hearing about stuff we were doing in our classrooms that I didn't know was showing up in our standards. And so now that I read them all, I can tell you what we're doing and what we're not doing and what we should be doing. And here is one in our state. I think you have one similar to this notion of universal human rights. And everyone should be treated fairly in order to meet their basic needs. See, in our state, with that third grade standard, we had some third graders write a book. And they wrote a book about voting rights, which is a human right in our country. And what they learned was that in our country, not everyone has equal access to voting. And they came to a board meeting to present their findings and to share their book. They're published authors, by the way. And they said to me, Dr. Brown, if voting was such a fundamental right, why do we work so hard to take it away from people? You see, here's another one right here. See, the citizens of New York State, and you have a standard similar to this one too. You have we're here to develop young people who are going to commit to serving their communities. If you go a little bit deeper, check out what's at the bottom here. Identify a situation in which social actions are suggested and solutions are presented to people in positions of power. Now, if you really unpack that language in that standard, and I don't want to say it too loud because some people don't like to hear it in schools, but that's called activism. You see, our young people should be activists. And I can now show you why and how it shows up in our standards. And see, this is why the young people, these are fourth graders who've partnered with our high school seniors, and they've come to our board meetings the last 3 years. And it was a part of their case study and their project that was connected to the academic standards, where they came and they said, Dr. Brown, here's the academic calendar. when we go to school, when we don't go to school. And here is your policy on how you're going to meet the needs of all kids. We call it an equity policy. You have these two documents, Dr. Brown, that are irreconcilable. And they presented to us how, of the young people that are at the top and the young people at the bottom, how most of them represent they represent the great diversity that exists in our school district. And they said, Dr. Brown, some of us are in school on all of our religious holidays, and some of us have never been to school on a religious holiday. And they went through 4 or 5 other ways in which the academic calendar, when we go to school and when we don't, was oppressive or marginalizing certain groups of young people in our schools. I don't know when the last time you thought about the academic calendar, but these babies are. And they came to the board meeting they came every year. See, our calendar has changed now because of their advocacy and their activism. You see, I can show you how it's connected to the standards. I can show you how they're solving a problem that's relevant to their local community. I can show you how that's embedded in what we do. So that's voice and agency. And what our young people are also demanding, and what we as educators need to challenge ourselves to think about and to do, is to infuse thinking into our curriculum, infuse thinking into our instructional practices. Yeah, and we had to define thinking. Our vision statement was thinkers, because if everybody was thinking, we would solve a lot of problems. How I feel. You see, thinking, if you define it, it's about solving complex problems. It's about acquiring new knowledge. Here, now this is where we added some pieces. And as you think about this journey you're on now to meet the needs of all students, thinking is about having a sense of self. Who are you? When was the last time you reflected on who you are in your background and what you bring, your superpowers, how you're different, how you're unique, how you're the same? And see, to be a thinker, you need to collaborate with others. We were able to detrack mathematics in our school district because of that piece right there. Because we had some young people who were never in classes with some young people from other places in our community because of the ways in which we group for mathematics. And we were able to say, students were able to say, I'm not having an opportunity to collaborate with the great diversity of our community because I'm never in class with all these kids. Y'all hear that? So if you're going to be thinking, are you able to collaborate with folks who are different than you, who have a different perspective, a lived experience? In our community, as we developed this culture of love, we were able to say, if you're not working with a diverse group, you're not thinking. And now I'm going to give you something to impress your neighbors with this weekend when you have that dinner party right here. See, here's another educational acronym I'm going to give y'all, a new one. I'm going to introduce a new one, DSRP. See, the academic literature connected to how human beings think can be summed up into an acronym. And I'm about to give it to you right now. Cheat code. It's DSRP, distinctions, similarities, relationships, and perspectives. That's what the DSRP stands for. If you take everything, this chair I'm sitting in, your computer, an academic standard, a relationship, if you take things through that lens, you're thinking about it. How is it different? What makes it unique? How is it the same? How is it consistent with others? The relationships, the cause and effect. How does this chair influence what's happening with the other chair? How does this standard influence or impact how we layer other standards? I hope y'all still with me, but we've done DS and R very well in our schools. As I've gone through the academic standards in your state and in my state, the DS and R shows up a lot. And we engineer instructional units based on the DS and R often and well. Where we have struggled is with the P. And this is how, if you take nothing else from me today, take this. And if I'm ever able to come back, I will spend more time unpacking this one. Perspective. We're not thinking. We're not engineering an opportunity for young people and adults to think if we're not engineering an opportunity to take multiple perspectives or to include multiple perspectives. And this is where we're struggling as an industry right now. I could argue that we are struggling to get kids to think because of, by design, our wishes to take perspective taking out of what we engineer. I'm gonna leave that with y'all. I just said a lot right there. I just summarized 20 years of academic literature and research on how humans think into 3 minutes. And I just challenge you with something to think about that may push against laws, ideologies, and some mindsets and beliefs. But that's okay. If not giving young people an opportunity to take multiple perspectives, see things from multiple perspectives in a classroom, are we really allowing them to think? Think about it. All right. See, break, shape. Now, build. What are we going to build? See, this is the fun part. but also the tough part. I'm going to leave you with this question. What are you building? This 30-year career of mine, I have been on different journeys. I've been working on different buildings. I was thinking about what metaphor to share with y'all today. This is the best one I could come up with, so I apologize. But see, this is beta thinking today, and I'm a bit raw and therapeutic in the therapeutic mindset. I know that I was on this journey for a long time, building this type of a structure. This type of a structure won me Superintendent of the Year awards. This structure allowed for me to travel the world to talk about how to be an instructional leader and a superintendent. I've written articles, I've facilitated book studies. If I go into one more school district in this country and I ask, what are you doing to meet the needs of all of your young people? And the superintendent, not you, Dr. Wright, they respond with, we're offering a book study. Come on now. Now, book studies are important, but that ain't the work. Oh, I love it when they say, the book study is going to be optional. We're going to pay people to come to it. Come on. You see, conferences, I went to conferences, I spoke at conferences. We thought we were doing the work when we would change the name of academic holidays, holidays on the academic calendar, or we would talk about what we're naming holidays. We thought we were doing the work. I'm from Central Virginia, y'all. Charlottesville, if you ever heard of Charlottesville, Virginia. I worked in Richmond, Virginia. It's my daddy who grew up there. He said to me last summer, we spent generations down here talking about them daggone statues, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. And he said, when they finally came down, ain't nothing changed around here. See, I spent a lot of time I've helped over 500 organizations write statements in response to things that have happened to people on TV, pretty egregious acts. If y'all know what I'm talking about. I've helped people with the statements. I put out the statements. And then when I call people up and ask, what have you done to change the policies and the instructional design since we wrote that statement? Always get that silence. Y'all know what I'm talking about? People are good at statements. See, I tend to call this the academic building or the academic journey. It's important. It can make people uncomfortable, but it's very different from the one that I'm building now. And I'm trying to challenge y'all to go. See, having me here shows something. And I want to keep pushing. If you are going to be on this journey, please know that it's going to be a little different from the academic one. See, to meet the needs of all young people, to talk about building a culture of love, you need to see your classrooms in your school district as a laboratory for change. How are the young people and the adults on this call going to change what's happening in our communities? Not just perpetuate it, not just mitigate it, not neutrality, but to actually do something. And see, that's going to require us to, I am an instructional designer. I know how to come in and lead workshops on how to shift our pedagogy. See, to meet the needs of all learners, we got to change the way we teach, all right? I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm just speaking truth. If we think we're going to continue to teach in the same ways we've always taught, using the same instructional tools and get different results, so it requires us to shift, and that's uncomfortable. And see, here it is, policy. See, most people think about the Board of Education policies. Yes, those need to shift, and we need to look at the wording. But when I think about policies, I'm thinking about the habitual actions done unto someone or something. Those are the rules in your classroom. Those are your school handbooks. Those are the things that govern and dictate how we interact with one another on a day-to-day basis. Those are policies. Think about them. Code of conduct, grading, attendance, how we line up, how we transition, all those things I'm here to tell y'all we need to look at and look at how they're contributing to everyone achieving or not. And see, then we get to this thing called love. And I got about 5 more minutes, Dr. Wright. And I think I can do it right now. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling I'm gonna go, because y'all actually talk about the culture of love. And as somebody who's written about it and studied it, as MLK would say, love is hard. Love is not the default. Love is the struggle. See, this journey I'm on here now, this authentic one, which is different from the academic building I was building. This authentic one is more than uncomfortable. It is a struggle. It creates active resistance. And that's been happening throughout history. When designing something for everybody, the resistance will be fierce. When really going after love, look what's happened to the leaders who have talked about love. There have been attempts to discredit them. I've had that. People make up stuff about them. They do all kinds of stuff to stop that love approach. So if you're endeavoring to create a culture of love, let's understand what that means and be prepared for the resistance, but also know that it's the way. It's the only way to achieve our wildest dreams. You see, because first, to achieve love, you got to reflect on who we are now. See, the theorists who talk about organizational change, shifting things, would say, in order to change something, you must understand what's happening currently. In order to shift the organizational culture to loving, you got to understand what your culture is today. Now, we would spend a lot more time here if I was in person or we had more time, and we can probably do this later, but I'm going to just give you, having done this now hundreds of times in places all over the country, when I ask folks, what is the culture of the school district you're in currently? And these are the words people tend to come up with. We're a culture of perfectionism. That's why we grade the way we do. We're a culture, the sense of the ways in which my phone is blowing up right now because I have been offline for 40 minutes. How many of y'all are expecting somebody to get back to you within seconds? The parents are like there's a sense of urgency that exists in our culture that's not always healthy. We are a culture, I could go through each one of these and give examples. We're a culture of either or thinking, power hoarding. My role exists because of power hoarding. A few people making the decisions. Fear of open conflict. We're seeing that a lot right now. We're telling folks they're not a good fit because they make us uncomfortable, or we don't talk about some of the issues we have because it can create some discomfort or conflict. I know I can't see your faces right now, but when I tend to show these examples of who we are now, people do two things. One, that's pretty much who we are. We really are reflective. And two, I always have people say, this is what makes us great. And I can agree. But I would ask, great for who? And I'm here to tell y'all, it's not one or the other. It's not either or, like perfectionism. Yes, I'm going to be getting on a plane tomorrow, and 10 of them going to the same place. Going to be taking off from LaGuardia Airport. They're all going to the same place. 10 planes tomorrow. I want all 10 to land. Y'all feel me? I'm expecting perfection tomorrow. But am I expecting perfection in the Algebra 1 classroom next week? Or am I expecting perfectionism on the basketball court, the soccer field? And see, if you put these words here and you reflect on what these words mean, love, what does love, I always ask folks to think about how do these characteristics show up in your individual lives? Do that work first. And then how does these characteristics show up in the organizational DNA? I know I struggle with forgiveness. That's why I'm always in a good mood. I rarely release the grudge. I just sort of ignore people. That's not good for a leader. But also know that we struggle as an organization at times to forgive. We suspend still. We suspend based on some things we know are biased behaviors. See, can we say we're forgiving as an organization when we do those things, when we give zeros? See, I'm going to give you this right here. I'm going to ask you to think about. On your left are the characteristics that I would present to you dominate our current culture. And we will never completely eradicate those characteristics from our DNA, and nor should we. But I am asking us to shift and to offer alternatives and not think about either or binary thinking. And when thinking about how to apply an antidote to perfectionism, it's going to be forgiveness, a sense of urgency, patience. I hope you see, because I'm doing this quickly now, and this is years worth of research and writing, and we unpack it in my book. Love is the antidote to a culture that we know is contributing to inequitable results, or we know is marginalizing certain populations of young people, or we know is not built for all. I'm asking for you to think about love in that way. See, that was heavy. Yeah. See, that was heavy, Dr. Wright. And I hope I've given you a lot to think about. Hope I've given you some things to do differently tomorrow. Thank folks for being here. Think about your curriculum in different ways. Some things we could be doing for the next year. Some things to be thinking about over the next. See, this is a 14-year journey for me in one school district, and we are struggling with that love every single day. And I can say to you, I'm bald now because of it. When building a culture that is loving, when building something for everybody, the resistance will be fierce because we live in a culture of zero-sum game. If I do something for somebody else, what does that cost me? And when you have that kind of thinking permeating the communities we live in, doing something for everybody is going to face some resistance. And what do you do to that? You do it anyway. So anyway, I'm looking forward to any questions you may have, Dr. Wright, and others on the call. Thank you for this opportunity to share.
Somebody else,
So
what
many
does
more.
that cost me? And when you have that kind of thinking permeating the communities we live in,
How is it that
doing something for everybody is going to face
Someone
some
else sounds just like me. Who is that? I want to know who that is.
I'm gonna let the thick
I'm looking forward to any questions you may have, Dr. Wright, and others on the call. Thank you for this opportunity to share. Somebody else, so what does that cost me? And when you have that kind of thinking permeating the community we live in,
how is it that
doing something for everybody is going to face
Someone else
some.
sounds just like me. Who is that? I want to know who that is.
I'm gonna let the thick
I'm looking forward to any questions you may have, Dr. Wright, and others on the call. Thank you for this opportunity to share. Somebody else, so what does that cost me? And when you have that kind of thinking permeating
give us a
the
second. Hopefully we can get this.
doing something for everybody, it's going to face
Someone else
some.
sounds just like me. Who is that? I want to know who
Maybe,
that is. I think we need to stop sharing whoever's sharing that.
I'm looking forward to any questions you may have, Dr. Wright, and others on the call. Thank you for this opportunity to share. Somebody else, so what does that cost me?
There we go.
All right, Lord.
That person sounded good though.
First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for sharing. And I know this, I've got several questions over here, so I'm going to get to the questions, and I'm going to save my reflections and my questions and put those to the side. I think I've already told you, and I've already shared with our leadership team that we're going to be, I hate to use the term book study, but as a leadership team, we are going to be delving into your book, Culture of Love, throughout this school year. But I'll put all my questions and comments to the side because I have several questions to get to allow you to respond to. But thank you. That was excellent. So much, so many powerful nuggets and information and examples that I think all of us, each individual in our district should be able to take something away from what you shared. So first question, and I have, man, it's almost 2 pages full of questions. And so I'm going to pick and choose in the short amount of time we have left. I don't know where to start. There's so many of them. Let's see. I'll just start with this one first. I'll combine 2 questions. How do we cultivate the joy and genius in all students? And then, no, I'll start with that one. How do we cultivate the joy and genius in all students?
Thank you for that wonderful question, and thank you for your reflections on that part of the presentation. First and foremost, I've learned this, and I hope that folks can understand what I'm saying here. You gotta know how you find joy. The folks on this call, educators, we need to reflect on what brings us joy. In every professional development session, every session I lead, every meeting, board meeting, staff meeting, we spend time doing an identity exercise. And many of those exercises to start the meeting is around joy. Yesterday I asked folks to pull out their cell phones and find an image or a note that brings them joy, and then spend 60 seconds just talking about it with a friend without being interrupted. And it was fascinating, and we learned a lot about one another when folks talked about what brings them joy. And see, I've done it other times to talk about what brings you joy in the workplace. We just got to practice. As educators, we are so servant and so unselfish that we tend to not think about ourselves. So one, what brings you joy and how do you cultivate that? And then think about how you would apply that to the young people we serve. And then how would you use the curricular model to cultivate joy? See, we had our black students came in as part of our focus groups and said the only time we get to talk about Black joy and excellence is doing conversations about the civil rights movement.
Hmm.
And it was fascinating to me, as a person who talks about this every day, leading in the way that I've led, that was the reflection for my Black students. So we had to do some work. How do we bring Black joy and excellence and the artifacts and receipts to all students, not just our Black and brown students, all students on a daily basis? So how do we do it? One, start with yourselves, and 2, talk with folks, educators, and design it into our instructional materials and in delivery. Thank you for that.
So I'm going to paraphrase this next one. There is lots of comments about a lot of barriers that many of our students face when they come to school. Single parent households, there's a lot of information about the stability that a 2-parent household with stable income provides a child. And many of our students in low income come from areas with a lot of issues such as crime, poverty, blah, blah, blah. I'm summing all of this up, but how do we as a school district um, mitigate this huge issue when we have students coming to our school starting at different levels and with different starting at different places, even at kindergarten, coming with, you know, so many different gaps. So what is it that we can do as a school district to mitigate that? And I'm paraphrasing like 5
No,
paragraphs.
thank you. This has been a question on my heart and mind for 30 plus years now. And I can say I've struggled with it. And this is what I would offer. One, let's start with ourselves and the mindset. If you don't believe we can do this, then you've already lost and you won't. I am one of those students, and I was saved by schools and educators because, frankly, the folks believed they could do it and they believed I could. So, as a person who's traveled all over the world now, talking to educators, I can see and I can hear in the voices and the language people use, the folks who truly believe they can do it and that young people can achieve in that way, who are coming from these backgrounds, and the folks who don't. And everyone wants to say they can, but you know, do you truly believe it? So I would ask folks to reflect, read. There are books, there's research about how we can do it and that it is possible. So I am here to tell you, as personally and professionally, we can, and it can be done. Now, I'm here to also say it's extremely hard. It requires resources. It requires a commitment. And frankly, it's a multi-year, multi-decade journey. This is not, you don't check a box here and fix it overnight. This is not chequity work. This is equity work. So I'm here, I have a long vision. My vision for doing this work well is 50 to 60 years, not 50 or 60 days. So I'm asking for your patience, but more importantly, I'm asking for your belief. And yeah, I could come back and we can get into all the research, the instructional strategies, the practices, et cetera. And we can talk about the ways in which there are laws and policies being written or perpetuated right now that don't want us to fix it. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent and get too controversial, but I can speak to it now, having studied it for 3 decades. Not everybody wants us to mitigate the issues that these young people are bringing into our spaces in a way where they all achieve. And I can show you how it's by design. So yeah, I hope I'm giving you some answers and some things to think about. And we can go deeper into the specific ways to do that. But that's an academic journey and a long one for sure.
Thank you for that. This next one, again, I'm going to paraphrase and kind of combine several. So as the voices for change, you know, organizational change, we need to do things differently. We need to shift. We need to reimagine. As these calls for change becomes louder and louder, they sometimes have a tendency to dampen the inspiration of employees within an organization. So how do you continue to push for change that we know that is needed, but also leave room or provide space to inspire your employees and not to become overwhelmed or negatively impacted by continual calls for change?
Yeah, no, it's always celebrating small wins and finding the genius and joy of the employees on the call. Yeah, you all are superheroes. I'm a comic book fan, so that's why I use this word superheroes a lot. You all have superpowers. I hope you heard me when I thanked you at the beginning. You're saving lives every day. So it's important for us to recognize what we bring and what we do each and every day. I am here because of people like the folks on this call. You saved my life, and you're saving lives every single day. So let's be clear about that's what we do and who we are. You've committed to a profession that's the most important one in the country, and I love you for it. And so do the young people we serve. That's how we inspire. We're inspired because we're inspiring people. And because we're so inspiring and we're so committed, we must know that there's always room to be better, to improve, to do more. If not, then are you so inspiring? Are you so committed to this work? So yes, it's natural and appropriate for us to want to change and to shift to do, yes, I am here, my brother is still here because of miracles and because of amazing educators, but 8 of us are not, and they were much more talented, and they were much taller and better looking, frankly. And so the fact that they're not, and my daddy always said that all 10 of y'all had survived, this world would be different. And he's right. Could you imagine 8 more of me? Anyway, as educators, I mean, it just fascinates. Oh, yes, that's our work right now. It shouldn't be happening by accident. It should be happening by design. That's why I need y'all to make sure this is happening for everybody all the time. If you're not inspired to want to do that more and more, Yeah, I don't know. Maybe do something different. Thank you for that question.
The next one, what do you look for? Man, and they more questions just keep adding as I look at the sheet.
Yeah.
What characteristics do you look for when choosing employees that are best for students in your district?
You know, the fact we've evolved, and I will tell you, and folks here will tell you, I only asked one question during the interview. And that's how do you love students? And share with me the artifacts and receipts that you have. And it's fascinating how that question differentiates the candidates and gives us a sense of who should be a part of the organization and who should not, and who will be the best for young people. And just think about how you would respond to that question. How do you love young people? And what artifacts and receipts would you share? That's how we know. Now, over the years, we've had all kinds of other questions that get at very specific things. And at times, we still ask some of those questions about curriculum design, your approach to assessment, how are you culturally responsive and differentiating your instructional strategies. But yeah, you get some academic answers. But that first one, you get something authentic, and you can tell. So I'm just giving y'all all a cheat code now. Because if you come into Central New York and you come in, I'm not trying to take anybody, Dr. Wright, but yeah, if you ever interview with me, I'm giving you the question that we're going to ask. And it's fascinating how many people are surprised by it now when they get it. And frankly, we've had folks not be able to answer it. And we have some folks who could talk for 15, 20 minutes and just exude enthusiasm and give us examples of the ways in which they've loved everybody and their products and their receipts.
Well, I like this question that I just saw pop up. I was going to ask something else, but I'm going to ask this. The narrative that Dr. Brown has written about and speaking fits so well with the vision for one of our new schools that is opening up this year, Lacey. And so the question is, oh, I just lost my place. What advice would you give to the leadership to help staff mid-year when they are in the weeds with difficult behavior and challenging experiences to remind them of this vision and renew their purpose?
Couple of things. Well, most importantly, invite some students into your grade level, department, and/or staff meetings, just to share reflections. We did something a few years ago. We asked all young people to take out those devices and record themselves for 60 or 90 seconds, reflecting on their experiences. And it was fascinating what we got back. We got a lot of positive things. And in addition to the positives, we got some things that young people wanted us to work on. We didn't tell them to give us positive or advice on what to do different. We just asked them to reflect. And it was fascinating what they shared. And it was inspiring. So mid-year, bring in young people. Now we have them come to staff meetings. We have them lead professional development. Just bring in some students to talk. And it will be inspiring. And it will reconnect you to the weeds because the weeds are important, but it will also reconnect you back to your purpose and the work you need to do. We brought students to board meetings because our boards tend to, don't y'all share this now, tend to get into the weeds, all right? Or want to do things that boards shouldn't be doing. And at that time, we bring in students to remind them of why governance work is so important. So I would do that student work first. I would take some time to celebrate and find joy as a team, because sometimes as educators, we tend to lose sight of that, what's bringing us joy in our personal and professional lives. So not just mid-year, maybe every week, build that into what you're doing and make that part of the culture.
Thank you for that response. We probably got time for two more.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about being student-centered, but we also know that we need adults to facilitate the work in a school district. And so sometimes the term student-centered is off-putting to the adults or to the teachers who are doing the work. We use the term, or have started using the term, learner-centered in our district because we're all learners, students and adults. But the question is, oh, I just lost it. Oh, can the culture of love be teacher-centered?
Of course. Most of the work I'm doing now with that book is in private industry and with organizations with only adults. So yeah, I think it's human-centered because right now we're talking about a love for humanity. And when you love humanity, you actively do something when you see humans not doing so well, or when you see folks marginalizing or oppressing other humans. So the culture of love is about a love, and I love humanity. And when I see something not going well for humans, I'm going to do something. And that's oftentimes loving more. So yes, that's learner-centered, that's human being-centered. Not just for, and what I've learned too, having been in the place for 14 years, is those students, they grow up to be your friends and your colleagues and people you work with. And many of the young people that I started here with are now working with us in the school district. Some of them are working, frankly, I'm at my home right now, and some of them are working on an addition to my house. Some of them I invite to my birthday parties. I go to their baby showers. So yeah, this is community we're talking about. I've always blurred the line between a student and an adult or a teacher. We're all in this thing together.
Right. This next question, this is my question.
Yeah.
Be a little selfish for a minute. I know many of the changes you made in your district, and changes that have been made as a result of student activism. But can you share some of the actual policies or practices? You shared a little already, but some of the major policies or practices that have occurred in your district, as a result of student activism?
Two, that you do Google search, you'll find out a lot about us. We always tend to spark national controversies or conversations. One, the code of conduct. Every school district in America has a code of conduct. And we said students are going to lead the development of all that we do. Policies, when it comes up for redesign, students are leading that conversation. And quickly we had to change the name of it. It went from being a code, because they said we only have two codes we know of, the penal code and the code of conduct, Dr. Brown, and neither one is good for us. And then they went on and as they explored their code of conduct, they rewrote it, and they partnered with our educators in our community to rewrite a code of conduct that's much more restorative. It still abides by state laws, but it is one that is about love and inclusion, not about exclusion and penalty. Now, I could spend more time and I'll share with you. I think it's a great example. That's a code of conduct policy, practices. Our young people came in and said, it's important for us to organize according to affinity groups. Heck, they gave examples of how we go to church on Sundays, which is an affinity group. So why is it that we can't organize affinity groups in schools and have conversations that are important? Now, we're not excluding anybody, just like we don't exclude people from church, but we're not excluding anybody from our affinity group, but this is for a particular group. And they organize day-long celebrations, instructional strategies, and units around their affinity groups. And I found it to be beautiful. It actually was instructive to our educators as we designed curriculum too. Now, some folks heard about that and had major issues with it. And now we're in active debates right now. Is that appropriate? I know it's appropriate, most importantly, because the young people have asked for it, they demand it, and they are building it. But the adults oftentimes are struggling with why it's happening. So anyway, that is an ongoing conversation. But again, students are leading everything we do. And oftentimes it pushes against the dominant culture and approaches, and there is the resistance and the controversies. And that's the conflict that's healthy from my perspective, not always destructive, constructive, not destructive.
Well, Dr. Brown, we are almost out of time. I probably have room for one more question. But before I get to that question, there are lots of requests, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do so because I think it'll be hard for you to say no, if you wanted to. But I've had several requests for this presentation to be shared with employees if possible.
Well, I thought it was. I thought everybody was on the call. All right, of course. Please,
Yeah.
please go for it. And follow-up questions are welcomed. Pushback, disagreements are welcomed as well. And I always ask folks, when you see this out of context or when you see this and you disagree, just remove the emotions and bring to me your data and your research and or your stories from the young people we serve. And I would love the debate and the conversation.
I think individuals actually wanted your slides.
Oh. And I will say the same. Use them as an instructional material. Don't try to recreate them because out of context, it becomes a dangerous act.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the last question that I will pose to you is, in what ways can we do two questions? In what ways can we integrate love and kindness into our school's curriculum and in our daily interactions? And how can we cultivate students to be more kind and loving to each other?
Sure. Two things, some questions, and I'm taking this from Ghodri Muhammad's work on cultivating joy in genius. Think about what you're going to plan for next week or the week after. Just look at your units and your lessons and ask a few questions. How will this unit help young people explore something about themselves, the cultures and histories of themselves and others? Just ask that question. And if your unit or lesson is not doing that, how could you modify or adjust it to do so? How will this unit or lesson allow for young people to explore concepts around love and use those terms that I share with you: forgiveness, patience, commitment, etc.? How will it allow for young people to explore those concepts? How will this unit or lesson allow for young people to see themselves, to create a sense of belonging, or to embrace the humanities of others? Just ask those questions. And if your unit or your lesson is not doing that, every single one, then modify or adjust, or shoot me an email and I'll give you some examples. That's how we started. And that's ongoing work.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown, for taking the time to share with us today. I can probably predict that this won't be your last time sharing with us, but we appreciate your time, your effort, and the powerful lessons and examples and information that you shared with us today. And I think it is, I know it is perfectly aligned to the work that we started back in 2022. We're actually getting ready to roll out and implement our strategic plan. Our strategic plan is in the final stages of being developed. And when you look at our priority outcomes and some of the themes and strategies, it is so steeped in many of these concepts that you've shared about the culture of love, belonging. It mirrors that statement that you saw on our website. And so we're excited about this work. We know that it won't be easy, but we thank you for sharing with us. I think there's lots that we can glean and learn from you and the work that you've done. And so we're excited to partner with you on this journey. So on behalf of all of our employees, thank you for getting us on a great start as we begin this upcoming school year. So thank you, sir.
I love y'all. Thank you. Take care.
And have a great year to everybody who is still listening and watching.